Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. I am your old friend Li Muyang. Today we start with a number, 94%. This is not some industry shrinking. This is how much Chinese people's willingness to take loans has disappeared in just 7 years. In 2018, new loans to regular people reached 7.36 trillion yuan. In 2025, that number dropped to only 441.7 billion yuan. It fell by a full 94%. At the same time, people's savings jumped up by 14.64 trillion yuan. That is 33 times more than the new loans in the same period. Money changed from borrow it and spend it bravely to hold it tight and never let it go. In this show, we will not talk about big macro numbers or government slogans. We will just look at one very harsh question. Where did ordinary Chinese people's money actually go? Why did the whole society suddenly decide to only save, never borrow? And behind all this, what kind of system-wide wiping out of wealth is happening? If you care about China's economy, please subscribe to my channel and turn on the little bell. Choose all notifications so you don't miss future shows. The central bank's latest data shows that in 2025, short-term loans to regular people decreased by 835.1 billion yuan. That means consumer loans, credit cards, and business loans are all shrinking on purpose. Medium and long-term loans still have a little growth, but it mostly comes from home mortgages, and even that growth is much smaller than in any past year. Meanwhile, long lines form in front of bank counters as people wait to deposit money. The share of fixed-term deposits keeps hitting new record highs. People have the money in their hands, but they completely stopped moving it. Why? Interest rates have already fallen to the lowest level in history. Home loan rates have been cut many times too. So why is nobody borrowing? There is only one answer. The problem is not the interest rate. The problem is how people now see the future. People have clearly seen where things are heading. That direction makes borrowing money to spend or using leverage feel like extremely high risk. How did this view form? Did it collapse overnight? No, it broke slowly, one by one, like 4 big pillars falling down. Now let's take these 4 pillars apart, one by one. You will understand why the whole society's willingness to spend has completely reversed. 1. Houses changed from a wealth engine into a debt trap. For the past 20 years in China's economic story, buying a house was almost the only clear way for ordinary people to grow their wealth. According to the central bank's survey of urban families' assets and debts, housing made up 60 to 70% of total family assets for a long time. It once reached 69.3%. That is much higher than America's 25 to 30% or Japan's 36%. Housing was truly the anchor of Chinese family wealth. More importantly, this anchor pulled the whole economy along. Mortgages created credit, decoration drove spending, and property management created service jobs. As long as house prices rose, people felt richer and richer. They dared to spend, dared to borrow, and dared to add more debt. Real estate was a huge wealth multiplier. Now, this whole logic has completely flipped. Since the high point in 2021, second-hand home prices in 100 cities fell about 8.36% for the whole year of 2025. In some cities, the drop was more than 20%. In 2026, the number of homes listed for sale keeps rising, but buying stays very low. Liquidity has almost disappeared. Many families who bought at high prices now see their biggest asset shrinking. Yet they still carry about 37 trillion yuan in total home loans. Their monthly mortgage payment takes 40 to 50% of family income. One side, asset value going down. Other side, cash flowing out every month. The old logic of borrow money to buy assets is dead. This is not a normal market correction. It is a system-wide reversal of the wealth effect. The central bank report says 78% of families' housing assets cannot create positive cash flow. Rental yields stay stuck between 1.5% and 2% for a long time. Houses change from a wealth engine into a debt trap. They are no longer a tool to grow value. They have become a heavy burden, sitting silently on family balance sheets, slowly eating away at the owners. When this house pillar fell, people could still rely on their salaries. But what if the salary pillar also starts shaking? 2. The income foundation is quietly being pulled away. Over the past 10 years, the 4 main income pillars that supported the middle class, platform economy, education and training industry, real estate supply chain, and export manufacturing, are all shrinking in a systematic and irreversible way. These sectors used to be the brightest wealth accelerators for countless middle-class families. In the platform economy era, giants like Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, and Didi grew very fast. They created huge numbers of high-paying jobs, algorithm engineers, operations managers, content creators. Suddenly, making tens of thousands of yuan a month was no longer a dream. The education and training industry was another goldmine. Before the double reduction policy, there were more than 120,000 off-campus training institutions nationwide. The industry was worth 2.4 trillion yuan and employed millions of high-end talents. New Oriental and TAL were leaders. Their teachers could easily earn 200,000 to 300,000 yuan a year. It was the most stable iron rice bowl for the middle class. The real estate supply chain was even bigger, from design, construction, and materials to sales, agents, appliances, and furniture. It supported almost half the economy. Export manufacturing was another hidden highway. In factories in Guangdong, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu, engineers and managers earned big through order bonuses and performance pay. Their incomes doubled easily. Now all of this is being quietly shut down, track by track, by an invisible hand. The platform economy faced strong government regulation. Big companies started wave after wave of layoffs. Algorithm optimization, business shrinking, and the end of traffic bonuses turned the old golden bowl into something that even the iron bowl can barely hold. The education industry was wiped out overnight. After the 2021 double reduction policy, discipline-related training institutions for compulsory education were cut by 96%. Millions of teachers lost their jobs instantly. Places that used to be packed with students are now empty. Real estate company failures spread like dominoes. Giants like Evergrande, Country Garden, and Sunac ran into trouble one after another. Tens of millions of suppliers, construction workers, salespeople, and property staff were hit. The whole industry chain entered a long winter. Export manufacturing also hit barriers. Global trade friction, supply chain restructuring, and tariff walls caused orders to flow out of the world factory. News of coastal factories closing or moving happens almost every month. Official 2025 data shows this clearly. National per capita disposable income was 43,377 yuan, with nominal growth of 5%. But this growth is clearly lower than the average of the past 5 years. Even worse, per capita net property income was only 3,490 yuan, growing just 1.6%. Its share in disposable income fell to 8%, the lowest since 2017. This is no longer just temporary unemployment. It is a quiet, steady process of pulling the rug out from under middle-class incomes. When income expectations become more and more uncertain and uncontrollable, people's first reaction is always the same. Don't borrow, don't spend. Hold cash tightly in your hand. After all, no one can guarantee they will still get the same salary tomorrow. Income is shrinking, but at least people are still here. The problem is that the number of people who are willing and able to spend is also decreasing. 3. The population is shrinking. The main consumers are disappearing. Aging is speeding up rapidly inside Chinese society, like a silent but unstoppable structural tsunami. In 2025, the number of people over 60 nationwide exceeded 323 million, making up 23% of the total population, an increase of more than 13 million from the previous year. The number over 65 reached 223 million, close to 16%. At the same time, the birth rate fell to a historic low of 5.36 per thousand. Only 7.92 million babies were born that year, the lowest since 1949. This means the next generation is already less than half the size of the previous one. The population pyramid has completely flipped. The base, children aged 0 to 14, has been flattened like a thin pancake, now only 15.2%. The top, elderly population, has become a heavier and heavier mountain, pressing down on the whole society until it can hardly breathe. China, which used to be young and energetic, is visibly turning into a silver-haired country. Nursing homes have no beds available. Hospital geriatric departments have long lines. Kindergartens and schools are starting to see enrollment shortages. The sound of noisy children has been replaced by empty echoes. In sharp contrast to this old and heavy picture, the post-90s and post-00s generation has seen through the rules of the game and collectively chosen to step off the field. The 25 to 40 age group, once seen as the main consumers, now has a peak debt ratio of 91.3%. On average, each person carries 121,000 yuan in debt. They are not unwilling to buy houses, cars, travel, or have children. They have simply been crushed by 3 huge mountains: high housing prices, high education costs, and high medical pressure. They can no longer breathe. Monthly mortgage payments act like a sickle that never lets go, cutting their already small cash flow every month. Tutoring classes and medical bills act like 2 invisible chains that lock them down tightly. So they choose to lie flat. No fierce competition, no overtime, no having babies, no buying big items. They even find casual spending too tiring. They prefer to stay in their rented rooms, order takeout, scroll short videos, or occasionally visit a countryside homestay, not to pursue a refined life, just to have enough to eat and live, and to breathe freely. This is not a short youth rebellion. It is not a small cold in the economic cycle. This is an irreversible structural decline. The number of consumers is shrinking fast, fewer and fewer newborns, and the quality of consumers is collapsing at the same time. The main group has been completely drained of confidence by high debt and high pressure. When the base of the pyramid gets smaller and smaller, while the top gets heavier, the consumption engine of the whole economy naturally loses its most important fuel. The domestic demand boom that used to be supported by young people is now quietly being emptied out by the heavy pressure of aging and the collective lying flat of the younger generation. Even if there is still income and still people, the last wall below makes everyone afraid to spend money. That is fear of the future. 4. Three big mountains are pressing down. Money must be kept. The first mountain, medical care. A bomb of uncertainty that can explode at any time. Medical fear is never a predictable expense you can budget for. It is a bomb with an unknown fuse and unknown landing spot. It might stay quiet for 10 years, or it might land in your living room tomorrow. Cancer, brain hemorrhage, heart failure. These names sound far away, but they can knock on any family's door at any moment. Even with basic medical insurance, the high out-of-pocket costs, imported drugs, special treatments, and ICU fees of over 10,000 yuan per day can completely destroy a family's finances in just a few months. That online saying is not an exaggeration. It is a statistical fact. 60% of people spend 60% of their savings in the last 28 days of life. Selling the house, selling the car, borrowing from every relative and friend may only buy a few months of breathing room. Many more families choose silence at that point, because one step further means total family collapse. This fear does not need an actual illness to start. Every day, every minute, it quietly reminds you, the money in your hand cannot be touched unless there is no other choice. The second mountain, retirement. A downhill road that can be predicted exactly with no way out. If medical care is a random bomb, retirement is a certain downhill road with no escape. Data from 2024 to 2025 shows that the replacement rate of basic pensions for urban workers is only about 45%. Far below the international warning line of 55%. After retirement, income is almost cut in half. A job that once paid over 10,000 yuan a month may drop to only 4,000 or 5,000 yuan after retirement. And this assumes the pension system can fully pay out. The speed of aging is much faster than the speed of policy response. The 323 million people over 60 are like a heavier and heavier mountain pressing on a smaller and smaller working population. The low birth rate has quickly weakened the traditional family support model. The social pension system is far from mature enough for people to rely on with confidence. Many people are still working but already lie awake at night worrying, who will support me when I'm old? Who will pay the medical bills? The third mountain, education. A financial countdown that starts from the day the child is born. Education is the only one of these three mountains that starts counting from before the child is even born. It is not a sudden shock. It is a 20-year marathon with no way to quit halfway. From kindergarten to university graduation, the national average cost of raising a child has reached about 680,000 yuan. In first-tier cities, it easily exceeds 1 million yuan. In second- and third-tier cities, it often starts at 100,000 yuan. School district housing, tutoring classes, interest classes, university tuition, and living expenses, every stage of growth is a rigid expense that cannot be delayed or cut. Before the child is even born, parents already start calculating. Education is no longer a choice of investing in the future. It has become the heaviest, longest-lasting, and most unavoidable financial duty right now. These three mountains together create an unsolvable dilemma. You don't know when a serious illness will come. You don't know if your pension will be enough to last until the end. You don't know how long the education bill for your child will keep going. Facing this structural uncertainty, every single yuan is no longer disposable income. It becomes preventive savings that must be kept aside. This is why residents' willingness to take loans has hit bottom. This is the deepest psychological reason behind those 14 trillion yuan in new deposits. Spending an extra 100 yuan on a cup of coffee today, swiping the credit card again tomorrow, or planning a family trip the day after. These once normal spending behaviors have now become luxurious and dangerous because no one knows when the next serious illness, the next huge school fee, or the next round of retirement expenses will suddenly hit. Consumption is something you can only do when you have confidence. This is the most real and most cruel picture right now. It is not that people don't want to consume. It is that they have no strength left to consume. The four pillars have broken. The foundation is loose, but the story is not over yet. Next, three knives start falling from above, completely wiping out the last bit of middle-class wealth. According to recent media reports and industry statistics, 1779 unfinished, rotten tail projects exist across 142 cities nationwide. In Chongqing's new district, the unfinished rate is as high as 69%. This means that out of every 10 buildings under construction, nearly 7 will stay stuck halfway forever. The money has already been paid. Down payments, mortgages, decoration fees. Countless families put their entire lifetime savings and future income into it. The contract was signed, the bank loan was approved, but the house remains a huge empty concrete shell, forever stuck at the cold words under construction. Delivery dates are delayed again and again, and finally disappear from the schedule completely. Even more cruel, the mortgage payments cannot be reduced by even 1 cent. The bank does not care whether the house is finished. Interest and principal must be paid on time. So homeowners fall into the most desperate double emptiness. On one side, the real money paid out is never coming back. On the other side, monthly payments flow out like blood, pressing people until they cannot breathe. Cash flow is directly squeezed dry. This is no longer an investment failure or a normal market adjustment. This is outright systematic robbery. Countless middle-class families used everything they saved by living frugally, working overtime, and cutting every corner. And in the end, they only got a concrete tomb that will never be delivered, plus a debt shackle that will never be paid off. Their wealth was quietly and extremely efficiently wiped out inside these unfinished buildings. In this way, millions of families slid straight from have a house, have a loan, have hope, into the abyss of no house, no money, no future. But what is even more frightening is that when everyone stops, the market itself starts to get sick. When the whole society reaches a collective agreement that the longer you wait, the cheaper it gets, all non-essential consumption gets automatically delayed like a pause button was pressed. Today, don't buy a new phone. Tomorrow, don't buy new clothes. The day after, cancel the long-planned trip. People silently calculate the same thing in their hearts. Just wait a bit longer. Prices will fall again anyway. Once this expectation spreads among people, it spreads like a virus. Consumption willingness is completely frozen. The market instantly loses vitality. To clear inventory quickly, companies can only launch round after round of price cuts and promotions. Their already thin profits get squeezed like a dry sponge, thinner and thinner. After profits shrink, the most direct result is layoffs, pay cuts, and reduced spending. Employees have less income, hold their money even tighter, and consumption shrinks further. This creates a deadly cycle. Price cuts, profit shrinkage, layoffs and pay cuts, less income, even less consumption. Companies cut prices again. This is the most terrifying deflationary spiral in economics. Once it starts, there is almost no easy way out. In a deflation environment, even if the central bank keeps cutting interest rates and pumping money, the money does not flow to the real economy or into ordinary people's pockets. People would rather lock their money in the bank than spend it. The more this happens, the faster and deeper the spiral turns. In 2025, this spiral was clearly visible. The national CPI stayed low for a long time, even close to zero growth. Total retail sales of consumer goods grew weakly, like a badly stalled engine that cannot speed up no matter how hard you press the gas. Malls had few people. Restaurants had more and more empty tables. Goods sitting in online shopping carts were not checked out for a long time. The whole economy was slowly dragged into a cold whirlpool, sinking deeper and deeper, hard to escape. The people have already lost blood. The beautiful era when local governments could easily fill their fiscal holes just by selling land is gone forever. Local authorities instantly changed from rich tycoons to weaned children. They had to urgently look for new replacements. So a new, more nicely packaged knife quietly took over local surtaxes. They changed it to a more impressive name and a more hidden channel, but the tax sickle was never really put away. It simply changed from openly selling land to politely tax reform. Value-added tax surcharges, urban maintenance and construction tax, education surcharges. These once small scattered taxes were repackaged, combined, and handed down. Local governments suddenly gained some autonomy. It sounds grand and proper, but in reality, it is just turning the obvious cutting of leaks into more precise, more continuous, and harder to notice hidden bleeding. Company costs are quietly raised. The middle-class take-home income is squeezed even more. People who yesterday indirectly benefited from real estate dividends today discover they have become the new high-quality tax source. The sickle changed. The window changed. The packaging changed. But the leaks being cut are still the same group. Not even the roots were changed. The final result is clean and neat. The blood of the people is drained more efficiently and more ruthlessly. The last bit of warmth in middle-class pockets is quietly and completely lost in round after round of advanced tax reform. From the 4 pillars breaking to the 3 knives falling one after another, we see a complete closed loop. Structural problems crush the economic foundation. The accelerators then systematically wiped out the last wealth. Money has been saved for now. But savings are not wealth. They are a warehouse of fear. Those 14 trillion yuan in new deposits. Behind every single yuan is not a family getting richer, but an ordinary person who dares not get sick, dares not retire, dares not let their child lose at the starting line, yet doesn't even know where the starting line is. In the darkness, they silently grip that last straw tightly. This is not excess savings in the economic sense. This is a nation, in a collective sense, experiencing a total clearing of confidence. The more important question is, what happens next? For ordinary people in such a big situation, is there still any way to get through the cycle? Dear viewers, welcome to leave your comments and share your thoughts. See you in the next episode.